works. We had this bug as well once. And yes, I think recording started. Yes, welcome to our July meetup. We didn't have a session in a while, but I think we are back with a huge topic. So I would say it's one of the really game changer topics of Power BI. And I'm also currently working on implementing it in my company. So I'm super happy that we have a talk by Markus Wegener on Datamarts. It's as usual in our group, it's very demo heavy and really hands-on. And yeah, with that, I hand over to you, Markus. And questions, keep them coming in the chat.
Yeah.
We will answer them along the way or at the end in a Q&A. We will see. Arthur and I will keep track of the chat, and then Markus also will check it regularly. Okay.
Okay, thanks. So I want to start with my session exploring Power BI Datamarts. I introduce myself with a small slides. My name is Markus Wegener. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Power BI super user. I think I'm very active in the Power BI community. You can find some blog posts on my website, ThinkBI. You can follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm more active in the LinkedIn part, and maybe the one or other will notice that Arthur and I make a web session in German. So if you are interested in Power BI topics, you will find us every third week. Yeah, every third week with an BI Thinkers talk. One thing before, this is a really new topic, so I don't have analyzed all the things by myself. I have read a lot of blog posts and looked a lot of videos, so this is my source of knowledge. I think it would be good to make a slide to show them, or the most important videos. I think there are more and more other people who have inspired my talk, but I don't want to stand here alone with my thoughts. So the thoughts come from other people too. And in the topic of Datamarts, I want to show you some of the statements I have found by the Microsoft employees and guys. And the first part is here, the guy in the cube. They told in this video, or one of his first videos, that Power BI Datamart is really about self-service data analytic. So it's the idea to bridge the gap between the business users and IT when it comes to database. So we see here the first interesting verse that it's about the bridge, about the gap between business users and IT, and it's something about databases. Another statement by Matthew Roche is Power BI Datamarts are like data flows with benefits. So it must be something which is nearly to the data flows. And one of the last statements is by Kasper de Jong. Datamarts is a fully managed SaaS service, no code required to do an end-to-end analytic project. So we see it's in the self-service part. It is something where we have a no-code, low-code experience, and it's something where we can do a data analytics from the end-to-end side in the project. And if we think about the gap of business and IT, I have found this slide. I changed a little bit. It's from Arthur. I mentioned it him in the link here below. And this is the part. You have the business users with a good feeling, the expert opinion, and Excel-based reporting. Then there seems to be a gap. And then it comes to the IT part, or the IT user with the data warehouse experience with the enterprise BI. And this gap should be filled by all the self-service BI tools. And in our session with the Power BI experience, or with the Power BI tool, and now with the new stepstone, the Datamarts. But if we think about all this wording around these tools, we have Datamarts, database, data warehouse, data lakes. What are all this topic about? So let us start with some data on the left side. This slide is inspired by Ruth. I have shown her before. With the data in our companies, in our area, so there are structured data, unstructured data. This is the raw data, or more the raw or something like the raw material for our data products. Then we have something like it maybe in the enterprise world, something like data pipeline, which is moves the data and prepares the data to our warehouse or to our data lake. All the things are controlled and coordinated by a data factory. It's like a normal factory in the real world, and we store the data maybe, or in the modern data warehouse way, in a data lake. It's a place for mass data storage, and it can be is something like a silo in the real world. Between these things, we have something with data transformation. We make our data product, so we want to have a centralized point where we structure and store our data like a warehouse. It's called data warehouse. So you see this is also the logo from a data warehouse from Microsoft. And from this point, we come to the new, or maybe we have to transport the data for self-service parts. It's the data flow. The data flow is also a part of the Datamarts. So here we can group this together. And then we have the Datamart, which is a specialized subset of data, or the special store of the data, where we can find our data in the database, which is like a store space. And inside the database, we have tables, which like retail shelves. Also in the special sources, or in the special store of our data in the Datamart, there could be other data sources which are not in the data warehouse, so we can enrich this data with our specific needs. And I think in normal or in smaller company, it could be that we don't have a data warehouse, we only have other special sources, and bring this into a Datamart where we can use our data. So let us start first with an overview, or with a look on the data flow side, which was there before. So what we have our data. We have here our Power Query Online experience, where we can prepare our data. And this data will stored in a data lake, maybe in the internal data lake from Microsoft, or your external data lake if you bound it to your workspace. And in this data lake, it will store the data in a model JSON file where the structure is described and the ETL process, and in data files with these in a CSV format. If you use a premium workspace, you can also use an SQL cache store with the enhanced compute engine, so it will optimize your query experience. And you also have the possibility to use machine learning capabilities. So if we look to the benefit sides from a data flow, it's a part of a reusable ETL package. So we bring it or we transform our data and make it reusable. We have the decoupling of the data source, so that every request will hit the data source again. We can use the data flows to have different schedules. We can use incremental refresh. We can set machine learning on this. as I want to show you here a small introduction to the data lake theory. So in the data lake theory, there was something that all the application will store their data in the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 environments, so that different application can share this information and the data can be reused. So this was the first draft by the Dataflows and the common data model. And if you use a premium, there are some special features you can use. So the compute engine, which make your queries faster. You can use direct query on a data flow. There are some features like computed entities and linked entities, and the incremental refresh, which comes with the premium feature. So let us compare this a little bit to the Datamart view. So here again, we have our data. We have Power Query Online. It's still there. It's a data flow Power Query part. Yes, there's also something which stored in the data lake, and in this time, but only the model JSON part. On the other side, the data are stored in an Azure SQL database. Something we have to think about, or we will see it in a couple of minutes, is that on this database, we are able to set role-level security. This is something which is new in comparing to an data flow. And the other thing is we will get a data set on this Datamart, and it's connected by, or it's important to know that this is connected by a direct query connection. So the role-level security on the SQL endpoint will also be active in our data model. Here we have all our relationships and measures and gets the information. You see, we lost the capabilities of machine learning. That's not part of or actual not part of a Datamart. What are our benefits? I heard it in a video from SQL from a guy in the cube. Adam Saxon says that there will be a better performance than we will have access to a direct file. I don't have made some performance measures, so we will maybe talk about this later. Then we have one benefit that is the end-to-end experience. So we with the Datamart, we have the first time the possibility to make a web authoring from the source to a dataset to a report. So the full end-to-end experience. With Datamarts, we get 100 gigabyte of storage. We have the possibility to use the SQL connection to connect the Datamart with other tools. We can use the role-level security, and one of the interesting things also is the B2B sharing capability. One of the important things here is the Datamart is premium feature, so you have to at minimum premium per user license to use the Datamart. Okay, so we are more and more nearer to the demos. So one note, please note that this is a preview feature. So maybe something is incomplete or something will change in the future. I have also made here a list or a link to the website on the considerations and limitation. I want to highlight two things. One thing is here it says that the Datamart is not available in workspaces that are bounded on a data lake and 2 storage. I think that is not right because it works for me. And the other thing is here the Datamarts is currently supports the following two SQL clients, Management Studio and Azure Data Studio. So if you want to use other third-party tool, it maybe not work. Okay, and here you see it's not available in some region. So, oh, that was too fast. So I will switch from the presentation. I need it as guide. And yeah, I hope you see my web browser, my workspace. It's premium per user workspace here. And let's start with one interesting thing here. We have the new part and we can select and maybe the data flow or the data mart. The interesting thing is if you select Dataflows, Microsoft announced that there is something new, the Datamart preview, and ask you if you want to try this out. So we can say, yes, we want to create a Datamart. So it's really similar, and Microsoft give you here the advice. So now in the background, it will create an SQL DB or instance, makes the provisioning of the SQL database, and this is it. We are here in the UI and can start with creating data mart. So I thought we can start with simple solution. So we use an Excel file. So I select Excel. One of the new things is that you have here the possibility to browse your OneDrive. That's very comfortable. So I select my OneDrive, I select my Excel folder, and I want to use here the AdventureWorks sales Excel file. Let's take a look. So we select this file and go to next. So the navigation tab appears, so I can select some of my work tables here in this file. So I would say we use the customer, or we make a small model. So we use the customer, we use the date table, the product table, and the sales table, so that we have a small sales model, and press transform data. So we see here our Power Query online experience. One important thing from the part of the type automatic type detection. Here are two columns, the month and full date columns. It was detected as a date column. I want to change it to the text representation. So this is normally it's in the, or how it's stored in the file I show you here one step before. So this was the data, how it's stored in the file, and the automate type conversion changed it to a date, but we need for our model the text representation. So we replace current type conversion to text. So please always check the type detection or the automatic type detection from your data load. So if we have selected all the data or tables, we can press on load, save, and the Datamart will load the data. So you see here a small validation checks and so on. And it's new that you can jump from here to the workspace and let this run in the background, but it's very fast. It's not so much data you see here. We have 1,000 updates. We have 300 product, or nearly 400 products. We have 20,000, nearly 20,000 customers, and here 100,000 records in the sales table. So the data is loaded, and you come to one of your of these views. maybe it's familiar for you. It's nearly the view you get in the data view of a Power BI desktop. So let us switch to another register here. It's the design register. So in this design register, you have the possibility to make a visual query. It's very cool. So we select the product table and drop this to this area, and you see here it's very visual, and we also can add the sales to this area. You will find a lot of the well-known transformation you can use also in Power Query. So let us combine these two queries to one table. So I merge query, we select the sales, we combine this product with the product key column. You see here this nice visual representation of the different join types. It should be okay in this way. I say okay. So it's switched here. We see here our result. We can expand the columns. So I want to have the sales amount in this table, and then I want to group the data. So let us see, group by, and okay, we make a advanced query. So we say we want to group the product category and the subcategory with this sum of the sales amount, and call it sum of. And now you see here in the grid, it creates a new query, or it shows the result, and you can make your SQL-like analysis on this data with an visual query experience. Something to mention, actually, you can't save this query result. Here you see there's actually no option to get another tab. You can't rename this tab. I think these are some things you can do in the future. And one thing we will see it in the other register. Actually, we can't save this result in a file or something else. So we use, now I want to show you the register of the SQL query. So there's a window where you can run your own SQL queries. I have prepared an easy one. It should come, I hope. Yeah. So this is an SQL query. We use the customer table. We query the customer region or country region. We make a sum about the sales amount and rename this column sum of sales amount. It's from the table sales. Join it with the table customer on the customer key from both tables. Regroup this on the customer region and ordered all the things on the sales amount or sum of sales amount. So you can hit here the run button. You will, oh, it's nice. I marked, I think it's because I marked this part. Okay, it's like in other tools, if you mark a separate line or a query, you will get an error because they only execute the part you marked. So here we see the result. We have here our countries and have our sales amount. And in this view, we are able to open the result of the grid in an Excel file. So we have here the export possibilities. Also here, we can't rename actually the queries. We can't save these queries here. We can't add here a new query. I don't know if it's cleaning the window and give us a new area, so it overwrites our SQL query in this part. So this is not really a thing we can. I think maybe in the future we will be able to save this part of our analysis as a data analyst in our solution here. So I want to show you something else. So in this case that we leave this Datamart. And one interesting thing here, you see this is the new Datamart, and it's in the moment it's untitled and have in the name the type stamp of the creation. If we go over this, okay, yeah, this is something you will see often. It's spinning here around. If this happens, just reload your browser tab and you will see your menu. So let us switch to the settings. And here you find the server settings. In the server settings, there is the URL of your Azure SQL DB from the Datamart. You can copy this to your maybe Microsoft Management Studio. Say, okay, I want to connect a database engine. I insert my string here. I switch to my Azure Active Directory authentication. This way, fine. So we see here, this is the SQL DB server. There's a database from our Power BI or from our Datamart. You find our data in the views area. So here you see it. There are some metadata with a relationship. I can zoom in a little bit. So here are the views of the relationships. We actually have not defined any relationships. And here you see the different table or views with our data, with the customer data, date data, product data, and sales data. So let me look to these. Yeah, okay. So in this way, we can also make a new query on this database with the Management Studio, insert the same SQL I used before in the online experience, say execute, and you see we get here the same results. So it works in the same way. One thing which maybe is interesting, if you go to one of these tables and say, okay, I want to see the script of this table, you will see it's generating a script. This view is called model from model customer, and here there's something, I think it's a table which is in the schema storage where you find the same or the table with the same name. So maybe in the future we will have access to these tables, or it's also wrapped or they will always wrap a view around this. We will see what's happened here, but it's interesting to know that here you have in the background something which is called in a schema storage, and all you have modeled is visible about over a view within the schema model. Okay, let's go back to the Datamart. There's another register here. It's the register for the modeling. So we see here, we have here the nearly the same experience like the model view inside a Power BI desktop. We can connect here our sales table with our sales fact table with the different dimensions. So let's put the customer key to the customer key here. It's important. I think in this direction it will make the right thing. So to look on this, we can try it in with another connection that here the table 1 is our sales table. We have here table 2, it's a customer table, and you have here the cardinality many to one. It's good. So we confirm this. If we make it in a other way, okay, we start from the, I think it was this way, from the dimension to the sales table. Okay, no, I think it was in one of the videos from on, or no, here it's wrong. We have dropped from the product table, this table 1, to the sales table, but here the cardinality says star or many to 1, so that's wrong. We need it in the other way, and in this way, that's the sales table of table is the many side. So this is one thing you have to be aware of by creating this relationships. So let us add some more relationships to the date table. So we can use the order. Let me see, where is it? The order date key on our date key. Confirm it. We can add our due date key on the date key. See? Okay, confirm it. And we drop our shipment, something with shipment date key with the date key. So we have created our small model inside a web authoring experience. So we can hide here some columns. You see it. Let us do this more in this way. We have the possibility to say, okay, here's the month column, and this month column should be sorted by the month key. And all the other options, you will find it here on the properties side. So if you want to change the data category or change the summarize, you will find it also here. So come to the next topic. Let us create a measure. So I select the table, and here on the top you see this possibility to create a new measure. So I will insert here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got it. Hopefully. Yeah. So we will create a sum of sales amount as a really simple measure. Some sales. You see, we have also the intelligence inside and sales amount. And hey, voila, we have a new measure in our field list here on the left side, and I think it should be shown something here, maybe after a refresh in the model view. Something to mention, actually you have no possibility to see the measure result inside the Datamart. So you have to create a report and have to see if your measure works in a report site. So it's different to your normal Power BI desktop experience. Maybe you have seen it here. It's also no possibility here to create a calculated table at the moment inside a Datamart. And so it's also not possible to create calculated columns in a Datamart. You can only create measures. If you want to create role level security, we have here the topic manage roles. It opens a window, and okay, we can create a simple role. Let me call it Germany. We can confirm this renaming. We select our table. Yeah. Normally, maybe I have to say close and don't save it. Let us jump between this registers. So this data will be, or let us leave this Datamart and get a second look. Here. Okay. Never mind. This is something different. You see is a little bit different to the desktop experience. This is because the rules will work on the SQL side. So we have no DEX queries which we use to define our rules. It's only a formula where we can select our filter criteria. We say, okay, country region should be same like Germany, and save this. We can assign these rules to our members directly here in the Datamart part in the email address, but it's not possible because we have no possibility to write dynamic DAX statements. It's not possible to have dynamic role security depending on different data. We only have here, it's more like a static role level security inside of our Power BI desktop experience. So we have now here our role. We have the possibility to say, okay, we want to test this role with this member or with this role perspective. If we activate this, we can go back maybe to this query window, and I insert our statement again. Last time we see all the countries. If we run the statement now with the active role, we only see the German country values. One disadvantage in the way of role security, we have not the possibility to run this query as a different user. So in the desktop experience, we can say, okay, we want to try this with a specific email address and use the view which the user has. In this case, we only can use the roles. Okay. So let's go. So this was the steps inside the Datamart. So let us leave the Datamart, rename this Datamart for a user group Berlin. So we see here we have our Datamart, and here is the auto-generated data set with the direct query experience. So from this data set, we can say, okay, we want to create a report. And let us see, let us make some analysis. So we use the sum of sales amount in combination with our customers. Make it a bar chart. We can we see here's one of the not applicable, which is very high. So let us add this to the page filter to remove this noise. No, the other way, something like this. We can copy this. Let us analyze the product. Put this to the axis, and at least we will use our date table, use some, I think some yeah, to bring it in this way. And I think you see it works very well. The performance is not so bad for a direct query experience. Let me see February. Yeah, so we're set, and you see here the interaction is still there. So we have our full end-to-end user experience to create or load the data, create a SQL database, put a data set on it, or it will automated generate it and can create reports with this. So I think this is quite fine for the simple business user. One others, yeah, we save it. And you say user group Berlin. So maybe some of you knows when we go to the dataset, we have here normally a part called settings, where we can schedule our reports, where we can find the XML endpoint and so on. It's not visible here. So the schedule and all the things are planned and set up in the Datamart. If we go to the settings here, I hope this is the story I want to tell you. Okay, yeah, you will find here our data mart, and here you find the ribbon for the data set. And here are some settings on the dataset side. So you find here the XML endpoint, but actually, if you use this XML endpoint connection and put it in something like Dex Studio to write your queries, say connect. I hope maybe it's changed during the last try. Yeah, you will get an error that there is not possible to connect to this XML endpoint or to this analysis service database. So in the moment you are not or it's not possible to use something like Dex Studio or Tabular Editor to query this model in this way, or to change something. Yeah. So you get an URL, but you can't connect to this. So let us take a look into the Power BI desktop. Here we got a new icon. Here's the data hub, and you can see that there is a possibility to connect to to normally as before to a data set, or now to the data marts. But in both it's only set here as a filter to data sets. This will, I think it's in the tooltip also, this will only create a direct query or a live connection to your data set. So if you press this, it will make a connection and you get a live connection to the direct query data set of this data mart. Another thing we can do is that we say, okay, we want to make an SQL connection to our data mart. So we go back here on the data mart side, copy the SQL string, insert it to an SQL database connection, say, okay, we want to import the data, use our Microsoft account to connect to this database. And now we should see all the tables in the navigator. So here we can load our model product sales. Let us go to transform data. Oh, it's open on the other monitor. You see here we have our data in it. We can reduce or remove some schema name from these tables. Yeah. And can then load this data to the Power BI desktop file. Let us see if this works. Sometimes I get an error, but if you try it again, it seems to be good or to work. It loads the data, and so we are here and can create our normal and lovely imported data model and use all the DAX functions which are available in the import mode and not in the direct query mode. And it's also possible to create calculated tables, DAX calculated tables, DAX calculated fields, all the things we love. Okay, I think it's good enough. We will see, maybe it comes to an error, but I think you know how to work in a Power BI desktop and with an SQL database. Let's go to the next slides. Okay, yeah. So I want to show you some things in the background. So I have here our Microsoft Storage Explorer. I binded this workspace to an data lake, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage. And you see here is a folder called Power BI. We see here two workspaces. This is our workspace from the sessions. You see here is a folder for one of our data flows, and here one folder from today from our session. So I can go into this. Here you see there's one model file. I show you this model file a little bit later, and here there are also some snapshots from your different changes you have made to the model. So it's also versionized here. I go back to this model JSON. I have downloaded and some of these files I downloaded and put it in Visual Studio Code. There you can format it. You see here it's an older version, but it should be the same. We get some information. We see here what are the tables which are loaded through this Datamart or with this Dataflow. Then there's a document part where you find your complete Power Query code or your M code. So if you want to save this, you get all the informations. Then you find all the entities, maybe, or in this part, the sales tables with all the columns and the data types. The interesting part is here that it says it's located as CSV. It should be something, what's from the old data flow part. And you see here there's a partitioning where the data is saved and is not saved in your own data lake storage. It's saved to an endpoint from Microsoft for the Datamart, and the data are saved here and bring it or directed directly to your SQL database. So you see here we have all the information of all the entities. So it's very interesting to see what's happened in the background. And it's really similar to the data flow experience. Yeah, here, okay. I get feedback on one of my posts here from a Microsoft engineer, which already told me that this data is not stored as a CSV file in a data lake storage. It's an artifact from the current CDN model. The data is loaded directly to the SQL database because I thought maybe it's something like storing in a data lake and that we access this data with an SQL serverless instance or something else. So he told me it would be directly loaded to the database. One other interesting thing, it's copied by or inspired by the Datamarts. So if we want to use some, if we looked on the API side from Power BI, all these things are, there are actually no APIs for the Datamart. I think this will come if this come more and more general available or the product come available, but we can use some of the APIs from the Dataflows. So here I will connect to our Power BI service. So I add my credentials here. I'm access my tenant. Now I can query all the data flows which are available in my workspace. So I add here my workspace ID. Here you can find this workspace ID in your browser in the top here. So we get all the data load activity which are inside this workspace. Let me see if I can see. Yeah, it's you will see it here. There's the model, or this is the reference. Maybe I zoom in. Here we have the location in my data lake storage, and here the actual model JSON file from our Datamart we created in the sessions. Then I can query this data flow and ask for all the data source which are inside or used inside the data flow or in the Datamart data flow. So we see here we get some information that there's our XLS or Excel file AdventureWorks sales on my SharePoint folder or my OneDrive folder, which are used inside this Datamart. And the last thing I try to use is that I would want to schedule the data flow with the API, but at the moment, if I execute this, we get an HTTP error 400. It's here. So it says that's a bad request. If I use the same API request on the data flow will be executed. So there's some, at this point, there's some limitations to execute the data flow over the REST API. So I want to wrap up or share with you some links which I used to create this demo or this presentation. There's something from CURBAL, what is the Datamart? We have a blog post from Matthew Roche, an audio podcast from Kasper de Jong, what is Power BI Datamart? We will find 2 videos of Guy in the Cube exploring data flows and the description or the description of the difference from the data flow and the Datamart. There's a good series from Redcat, or a series of 4 videos, and also a very good presentation from Datamarts about the Datamarts, where you can find, or under this link you will find his slides of his presentation. Oh, so sorry. So this was the main presentation. I'm very thankful for your time. And maybe now we have time for questions.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Great talk. It was very active in the chat.
Okay. So I have to take a look.
I was switching between your talk and the chat. There were a lot of questions. Some were already. I hope we answered all, Arthur and I.
I think not really.
Not all. Maybe I missed something. It was really very, very active. I think one of the most active chats in our meetups. Maybe, yeah, Arthur, if you have found one question that we didn't answer.
Yes, okay, then.
There was one at the very end from Fernando.
Yeah,
so first of all, the links we will all provide them. So Markus, maybe you can share them with us, and then we will share them over Meetup. So especially the Redacat links, I think were really, I like them very much when they explained the feature there. There was one question from Fernando very recently that will the SQL Server connection break the measure created in the Datamart? Don't fully understand it.
No,
looks like the name change or something.
Yeah, I think this is something which not happened because I try to, or in my point of view, this is something which happens here. So if we create a measure, it's a DAX measure, and actually I don't think that this that in the SQL database. I think we can have a look. So I switch back to our management studio, and I create a sum of sales measure here in my sales table. And I think we will find here this DAX measure. So maybe Microsoft is possible to transform this query part into some SQL, because during the direct query of the data set, it will transfer into an SQL statement, but it's not so that you find here any DAX parts. So it's really, I think, like I try to make some, to visualize it here, that this is a part of the data set and not the part of the data model.
But there was a question about gateways, but I think it's nothing that has changed with the Datamart. So yeah.
Yes, should be very similar in the data flow part. Yeah. Otherwise, please, if you have other experience, please give a comment, because it's very hard to find out everything. So it's good if you have some experience there, to share it.
Then Fernando said it's so is he right? It's a question actually. Is it right that the main benefit is like to create SQL Server views of a Power BI dataset? Yeah, for me, like my personal opinion, yes, it's if not the main advantage, but definitely one of the main advantages for me, because it's when I deal with clumsy web data sources where I cannot have any parameterization and no query folding, I always have to do the full load. Now I can dress them as a SQL database and then activate query folding. So my final data set is updates very fast. Of course, the Datamart has to do the full load anyway, so it's not gone. When the data source is like that, I cannot heal this, because I also had a comment on LinkedIn. Yes, of course, incremental refresh was also possible with the enhanced data flows before. You do not need a Datamart for this, but then you still have this incremental data flow, and when you load it into another report, okay, then you still load the data flow as it is. You can, as I've seen another talk of you, Markus, you can parameterize it, but when the data source itself is not foldable or not splittable anyway, it's still a problem. And here it's, yeah, I think for me it's a better way to avoid this problem of full loading bulk data for some years.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to get an SQL database gives many opportunities to work or to easily work on this data. And I'm really interested to see what's happened in the future if we go maybe to a Datamart project, open it, and found here in the query view or SQL view some stored queries where can come back and change it or rerun it and get more information on the new data state and so on. I think you see here this is a rubric or a part in the visual where it seems that there can be stored some queries. So maybe a hint, maybe we will see in the future. Good.
Okay. So yeah, big thank you again. Great talk.
Thanks.
And yeah. Then I wish those that are left a nice evening.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.